Hey there, fellas. Today is Tuesday, April 23rd. I leave to Korea in about 25 hours, and in true Sam fashion, I've not begun packing. I even picked up my passport this morning, but last Wednesday I played a home game, so you guys get one last Vancouver video before I head on over to Korea, and it was a good one. I played 2-5, 1500 max at a home game just down in Vancouver, and there was a lot of action. I generally don't like to fold in home games. Even in casinos, I don't like to fold, but especially so at home games. A lot of fun hands, a ton of bomb pots. I missed all of them, but 7 deuce game was on. It was a lot of fun. Let's take a look at some absolute street poker hands. To kick things off, we are playing 2-5 in for the max, $1,500, and we're starting the game 5 or 6 handed or so. We open up the ace-4 of clubs on the button, and only the straddle defends. Heads up to a flop of queen 9-4 rainbow. Checks to me, could bet small or could just check. I don't think it really matters that much, so this time I decide just to check. Turn's nice, it's another queen, so making it a lot less likely my opponent's top pair. My opponent once again checks, and we're definitely going to want to bet here, mostly for value, but a little bit for protection as well. So I put in a bet of $30, which my opponent calls. River is a complete blank, the 3 of spades, and now my opponent leads up for full pot. I don't really understand this. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. If he had a strong hand, why wouldn't he bet on the turn? Like, did he just river pocket threes? I don't know. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, so I decide, let's see what's going on. I got a pretty strong pair that I was most likely going to value bet myself on the river, so I toss in the call, and we get shown the ace-queen. Okay, so that's what's up. On to the next hand. In this next hand, small blind has opened it up to $35. I look down at king 9 off in the straddle. Easy defend here, so I make the call. We go heads up to a flop of king 7-6 rainbow. My opponent checks this over, and against most players, this would be just a pure check back. But this player is never checking back a hand stronger than king 9 unless he's got something like pocket kings, right? Which is very unlikely. So my hand is definitely ahead here. We're going to start building a pot. So I put in $40, which my opponent calls pretty quickly. Turn's quite nice. It's the 9 of clubs. Not only does it give us top 2 pair, but it's a lot of extra hands that can now call us. If he had a hand like 7-8, 6-8, those are all going to call a very large bet on the turn. So when my opponent checks to me, we're going to put in one of those big bets, and I make it $150 to go, a pot-sized bet. Once again, my opponent makes the call. Head to the river. It is the 4 of spades, a nice run out. Opponent checks it over once again, and he's got a round 1 SPR, so we're going to want to go for all of it. That's what I do. I move all in for $525, and after a little bit of thought, my opponent decides the price is too expensive, and he folds. So the game is almost entirely a 2-5-10 at this point, which, sweet. I open up the ace-king off on the button, raise it up to $30, get a call from the big blind as well as the straddler. So, 3 ways to this flop of jack 10 to rainbow. Checks to me, this is a board that's going to be much better for me, so I'm going to start with a small bet here. I put in $30, and only the big blind continues. Hence the turn, it is the deuce of diamonds. Little bit worrisome, but at the same time, I'm not that worried. It's a 2. So big blind checks once again, and if I had a hand like aces, kings, queens, ace-jack, some very strong hands, I would want to go for all of it, which means we need to put in the old overbet. This time I put in $250, almost 2x pot, going to set up a river shove. I think he had around 1,000, 1,100 behind or so. Maybe 1,000 behind at this point, but after a little bit of thinking, my opponent just lets it go. Hijack is open to 30, and I look down at king-queen offsuit to his direct left. He is a little bit short, looking around 45 big blinds, so these offsuit high card combos are mostly what you're going to want to be 3-betting, and you're going to have to drop, the fun hands like 7-6 suited, 9-7 suited. Those hands just aren't going to play well when we're this shallow, so you want to go kind of high card heavy. So I bump it up to 110, folds around. This is probably a little bit too big considering how shallow he is, but I think it's okay. But my opponent does call. We get a nice flop. It's king 9-9 rainbow. Checks to me. Going to start with a very small bet here. There's not much left to play for, so I put in a bet of 50, and my opponent calls. Turn is the 10 of spades. Doesn't change a whole lot. Hijack checks once again, and we're looking around a pot size bet behind, so it could go all in, but I think I like 40% on the turn and then 40% on the river, as I would with all my strong hands as well as my bluffs. So 110 into the middle. Opponent once again calls. Hence the river, it is the 6 of spades. Hijack checks once again. No thought here. I move all in for his remaining 180. And we don't get snap called. So it looks like we're good. We're hoping for a call. We're praying for a call. But it doesn't come. My opponent does fold. Cutoff has opened to 30. Now I look down at ace 7 of diamonds in the straddle. Could re-raise, could call. This time I decide just to call. We go heads up to a flop of jack 6 4, 2 spades, 1 diamond. So we got a backdoor nut flush draw, an overcard, and a backdoor straight draw. So when I check and my opponent bets about half pot, no way I'm folding that. So I make the call, we go to a turn, which is really nice. It's like I handpicked this one out of the deck. It is the 8 of diamonds. So now we have a gut shot, a nut flush draw, and still got our overcard. So I check once again, and my opponent puts in a very small bet here of $55, a little bit less than half pot. And it looks like he wants to play a small pot, which I don't like. So I bump this up to $200, setting up for the river shove. And after a little bit of thinking, my opponent does continue. I think we're up against a pretty middling hand here. Maybe something like queen jack, pocket 10s, pocket 9s, something like that. So we head to the river. It is the 10 of clubs. I don't get anything, but it does complete a few straight draws. For that reason, I am gonna go for it. I move all in for $520 and put my opponent deep into the tank. He is thinking it out, thinking it out. After about a minute or two, I decide to give him some help. I'm gonna show a card, and I'm not gonna show the ace of diamonds because if he just has ace jack, he just snaps us off and wins. So I'm going to show the 7 of diamonds, pretend like I had, maybe 5-7 or 7-9 diamonds, something like that. So I show the 7 of diamonds, and the first thing he says is, oh, fuck, 7-9 of diamonds. Yes, yes. And after quite a bit of thought, my opponent says he has top pair and lets it go, and we get that one through. We are just bluffing our ass off this session. We have a hijack and a small blind limp, and I look down at 10-9 of clubs in the big blind. Bump it up to $60, we get the straddle, as well as the small blind to call. So 3 ways to this flop, which is not bad. It's queen 10-6 rainbow. We got ourselves a little middle pair action here. Small blind checks, just going to check this one back 3 ways, and under the gun checks as well. Turn is quite nice. It's the 8 of clubs giving us a double gut shot. Any jack, any 7 is going to make us a straight. And now small blind puts in a pretty hefty bet of 110, around 60% pot. Raising would be insane here. Folding would also be kind of insane, but I don't think we're good here. But we do have a lot of outs, so I make the call and under the gun folds. Hence the river, it is the ace of diamonds, pretty interesting card. And now the small blind checks it over to me, and it really feels like he has a hand like king, queen, or queen jack here. That's all it feels like. And we have an amazing hand as a bluff candidate. Can I help myself? I don't know, something just fell off in the moment, and this time I decided not to go for it, and I just decided to check back, take my showdown value that I knew was probably no good. And good thing I did, because we're up against queen 10 suited for top 2 on the flop. We saved some money there. I was almost about to blast off at least $400 there. We open up the king queen off in the hijack up to $25. And a call from the small blind, and now the big blind puts in the raise up to 125. Straddle gets out the way, and now it's back on us. This player's been 3-betting quite often, like very, very active 3-bets, but also not really willing to risk his entire stack. So with a hand like this, we got decent blockers. I think we can get a fold from a hand like pocket jacks versus this opponent. So I don't hate this play, and I decide just to move all in. Small blind gets out the way, and big blind thinks about this for 2, maybe 3 minutes. And it doesn't work. He does make the call. We are up against ace king. So I don't even hate my play if he did consider folding ace king for a few minutes. So I think this one's fine. We go to the flop of jack 3-3. No hope for us. The turn, the 4 of spades, river, the queen of clubs. Oh my goodness, I cannot believe that. That is lucky. That is lucky. But we're on a $3,000 stack now. I think we're in for 2,300. I lost a pretty big bomb pot to start off, but looking like we're about $800 to $1,000 in the positive. We open up the Jack 10 of clubs, up to $25 in the hijack. We get a caller from the cutoff before the button puts in the re-raise, all the way up to 110. Never folding a hand this strong, even though we should, given how short he is. But I make the call and cutoff folds. Heads up to a flop of ace, 8-3, 2 hearts, 1 club. Not much we can do here. We have some backdoors, but we're just a bit too shallow to do anything. But I check, and now my opponent checks behind. Turn is the 7 of diamonds. We get a gut shot. And I just don't think he's going to check a very strong hand on the flop with the flush draw there. So I am once again going to bluff off my stack. 225 into the middle, and we get a very quick call. I am planning to go all in on almost any river. River is the 4 of clubs, changes absolutely nothing, and I move all in for $465. Opponent gives it quite a bit of thought. He's thinking it over. It looks like he's got a hand like kings or queens, something like that, and eventually decides to let it go. We are not getting caught today. We open up the ace 3 of diamonds to $25 in the cutoff. Button comes along, small blind comes along, and now the big blind puts in the squeeze up to 150. Straddle gets out the way, and it's back on me. And let's put some more money in the pot. I want to kick out the small blind and the button. We're in position, and we're very deep. We're like 2,700 effective, so 270 big blinds. And we can put a lot of pressure on our opponent. So bump it up to 375, around 2.5x, I think. Yeah, that sounds right. Button folds, small blind folds, and big blind makes a quick call. Heads up to this flop of 7 deuce deuce rainbow. And keep in mind, we are playing the 7 deuce game. Big blind checks. Going to start with a very small bet here, around 25%. And I put in a wager of 200. I let my opponent know the 7 deuce game is on, and he makes the call. Hence the turn, it is the 4 of spades. My opponent once again checks it over to us. And look, guys, we turned a gut shot, so we're just going to have to lose $2,125 additional dollars this hand. I don't make the rules. I don't make the rules. So we're going to size up for a river shove here, and I put in a bet of $700. After a little bit of thinking, we get this one through. We are safe. We open up the 8-5 suited on the button up to $30. We get a call from the big blind before the same player from the last hand re-raises up to 150. You're thinking, why is this hand in here? Because I don't fold at home games. I make the call, and so does the big blind. We're going 3 ways to this flop, which comes down king, jack, 4 with 2 spades. So we got ourselves a flush draw. Big blind checks, under the gun puts in a bet of $250, around half pot here. We could definitely raise, but I think that's a little bit insane. I would want to have at least a nut flush, maybe like a hand like ace 10 suited. So 8-5, I'm happy to just call this in position, and big blind folds. Hence the turn, it is the 9 of diamonds. My opponent announces same bet, $250, and I smell weakness. I don't think he has a king here. I think a king is really going to want to pile in money here just to preserve their equity. They're hoping to fold out some draws or charge them. But this bet feels to me like ace jack, pocket queens, pocket tens, something like that, jack 10. It doesn't feel strong. So I am just going to pounce on this right away. Normally I would just flat here, but I just don't think my opponent's strong here. I don't think we're ever going to get snap called. And I really want to put him to a decision for all of his chips. So I move all in for $2,010. My opponent gives about 5 seconds of thought, says, if you got it, and calls. We're running it once. The river is the deuce of hearts. No help to us. And my opponent rolls over pocket queens with a spade for the worst possible call down hand, blocking all straight draws and flush draws. My line didn't make sense on the turn, so I understand why he called. That is just such an insulting call. But I love it. I love it. I love the action. We are now stuck, and we got to battle our way back up. Low jack has raised to 25. Small blind is called. I decide to make a loose call with 10-3 of clubs in the big blind, and straddle comes along as well. 4 ways to this flop of ace, king, 5, 2 clubs, 1 spade. Action checks to the original raiser, who puts in a bet of $50. Small blind calls. Raising is insane here, so I just call, and under the gun folds. Turn is the 6 of diamonds, doesn't change much. Small blind checks, I check. Low jack puts in a bet of 180. Small blind folds, and this should really just be a fold, but nah, I'm at a home game. I make the call, and the river is the king of clubs. We make our flush, but it's a little bit dicey. I check once again. Low jack thinks for a little bit. Unfortunately, checks behind. Means we're good, and we are indeed good. We are playing the small blind game. Basically, every hand, about $5 is added onto the button, and only the small blind can win that bounty, so incentivizes you to play extra aggressive in the small blind. So the cutoff is raised to $35. I look down at pocket sevens and bump it on up to 140. Folds back around, and the cutoff does make the call. So we're going heads up to this flop of ace 5-3, 2 diamonds. Not a bad flop, to be honest. So going to start with a small bet here of $75. It doesn't have to be too big as we're not very deep, and the cutoff makes the call. Turn is another overcard. It's a 10 of clubs. Gonna start to check here, and we face a pretty small bet of 125. A little bit dicey, but this kind of feels like maybe he's got jack 10 or like ace jack that just wants to bet once and then check back the river. So I'm gonna proceed with caution here, but such a good price. I call. River is another blank. It's the deuce of spades. Changes absolutely nothing. I check once again, and I'm gonna consider calling an all-in, but my opponent only puts in 125. It's too cheap. I think we just got to pay it, and I think he would check back if he was going for that protection bet on the turn, so I'm not too convinced, and I think that we're probably good here. So I do put in the call. I announce pocket sevens. Opponent says it's good. I missed, and rolls over the king jack of diamonds. So we're going to scoop that as well as the bounty, whatever it was, maybe $30-$40. We pick up pocket kings. What a welcome sight. I'd raise it up to $25. We get the hijack to call, the button, the big blind, and the straddle. We're going 5 ways to this flop, which comes down ace 5-3. Big blind checks, under the gun checks, I check. Hijack puts in a bet of $75. Button calls, and folds back to me. We are just done with this hand, unfortunately. Low jack has raised it up to $25. Could re-raise, could just flat. This time I decide just to flat with a 10-8 of diamonds and the hijack. This invites 2 more players in. So 4 ways to a flop of 8-6-5 rainbow. Pretty good. Action checks to me. Gonna start with a small bet here, and I put in $30. Only the big blind makes a call, so we're taking a heads up turn, which is okay. It's the deuce of hearts. Doesn't change anything except for 4-3 just got there, which is a little bit concerning, but big blind checks once again, and I just don't see us getting too much value here if we go for a very large sizing, so I make a bet of just $90, around half pot, which my opponent calls once again. River is the king of hearts, bringing in the backdoor flush draw. Big blind checks, and I think he's just got a hand like ace-7, maybe 5-7, 6-7, something like that, and I don't think we're going to get a whole lot of value. I was considering just going small, like 200 or so, but even that I don't think gets called. So I size way down, $50, very cheap, and we get looked up, we roll it over, and the 10-8 of diamonds is indeed good. Low jack has limped, cutoff is raised to $75. Button is called, and I looked at pocket 8s in the straddle. I have not seen him raise this big, so I'm a little bit suspicious here. So I do decide to make the call. Hand's just too strong anyways, and low jack folds. 3 ways to a flop of 10-4 deuce, 2 diamonds, 1 club. I check it over. Cutoff puts in a very large bet of 175 on this board. Button folds, and now it's back on me. And something feels off. Something feels a little bit off. It feels kind of like a flush draw. Is what I was thinking in the moment. So I make a pretty speculative call here out of position, and we take a turn. It is the 6 of diamonds. I check, and after quite a long tank, my opponent decides to check this one back. River is the 8 of diamonds. We make our set, but it's a 4 flush board. I think it over for a bit, and I kind of want to get called by, I don't know, maybe he's got like pocket aces, like black pocket aces or something. I couldn't figure out what this was. I don't feel like he's got any diamonds in his hand at this point. Otherwise, he would have bet the turn. I don't know. It's just a big open, a big flop bet, a weird turn check. Something's just weird here. I feel like he's got... I don't know. But I think my hand is good here. So I'm going to try to get a little bit of value. I put on a small blocker bet of $90. which gets immediately re-raised up to 425. I thought this over a bit, and I don't know what this is. I still think I have the best hand here. This could be aces with a diamond. I don't know. Something fell off here, and I was pretty sure I had the best hand, so I do decide to make the call, and we are shown the 7 deuce. We caught him. We caught him. Yes. No 7 deuce bounty to him, and we're going to scoop a pretty large $1,400 pot there. I open up the ace jack off up to $25. We get a call from the small blind before the big blind now puts in a re-raise up to 125. Straddle gets out the way. I'm definitely not folding. I make the call, and small blind does fold. Going heads up to this flop of queen 10-4 rainbow. My opponent puts in a bet of 175, another really big bet on this board. But we are super deep. If I had a king, there's a good chance that we can take a huge chunk of that stack. So I'm going to make the call, and we head to a turn, which is quite nice. It's the 8 of hearts, so now any 9 will also give us a straight. And my opponent keeps firing, this time for 175, another small bet. Last time he did this, he had pocket queens on a king-high board. Let's not try to get him off a medium strength hand again. That didn't work out, so only leaves one option. I make the call. River. Come on. It is the 4 of spades. Damn it. My opponent now puts in a bet of $500, and there's no way I'm bluffing at this. I don't think he's ever going to fold, so I just fold. I think he had pocket kings, so a king would have been a huge card, but unfortunately it wasn't meant to be. Cutoff has opened it up to $30. I look down at pocket 7s in the big blind, happy to make the call here, and so does the straddle. We see the 7 of clubs in the window, followed by the 5 and the 3 of the same suit, a monotone board, but we do have top set. I check, under the gun checks, now the original raiser puts in a very small bet of $25. A little bit uncharacteristic of him to bet so small. When he had a medium strength hand on a monotone board, he just bombed it. So, a little bit worried, but it could just be a hand like aces with a club that doesn't really need the protection and is kind of feeling good about this. So, all in all, I'm going to go for the raise here, and I make it $75 to go. Under the gun folds, and cutoff, after quite a bit of thought, also makes a call. We're heading to the turn, looking for a brick. It is the deuce of hearts, the brick of all bricks. But something feels off. I'm looking at him, and something feels off. He doesn't have too much left in his stack. Maybe like 800 or so at this point. And something was telling me not to put in a bet here. Something was telling me I should just check call and check fold river. But that just sounds insane. And I kind of want to get all of his chips. I don't want him to check back a hand like aces with a club. So I decide to put in a bet, looking around 80% to set up for the river shove. I make it $200. After a good minute to 2 of tanking, my opponent announces all in. And I was this close to just snap folding. But I decided, let's try and get some reads. Started talking to him a bit. This should just be a snap call. This is $480. So around 500. Yeah, we got to call 500-ish to win a pot of 1,100. Which is like, we need 33% equity. And even if he has a flush, we have 20% right there. So we only need him to be bluffing. I don't know how this works. 13% of the time? I don't know. I don't know how that works, but all in all, to make this fold, I need to be 100% certain that this man has a flush. And I don't even think he just has a flush. I think he only has a nut flush here. I don't think he has any other hand besides the ace of clubs with another club. Maybe he has 4-6 of clubs, but I doubt it. I think he just has the nut flush and nothing else. And I think I'm going to do something crazy and just not put a single dollar more into this pot. I think I'm just going to fold top set here. After a little bit of thinking, I roll over my hand, the pocket 7s, he looks so unfazed. And I decide to fold. That's it. I fold. Top set there. And my opponent rolls over a card. Windmills it across the table. Alright guys, I want you to comment down below what you think that card is that got windmilled in my face across the table. Go on, post it down below. My opponent shows the ace of clubs. Oh, can you imagine that was a 9 of diamonds just rolled over? Oh, but no, he had the ace, showed the ace of clubs. That is definitely the nut flush. I couldn't tell you what I felt there, but I just knew it. I just knew it. My heart of hearts, I knew he had the nut flush, and we fold a set. Gross. Cutoff is raised to 35, button as called, and I looked down at 7 deuce in the small blind. We have the 7 deuce game on, as well as the small blind bounty, so double whammy. We really need to win this one. So I bumped things up to $185. Big blind folds, straddle folds, cutoff folds. Let's go. Button decides to back raise all in. I guess we call. Let's take a flop. We're up against ace 10 of spades. The flop comes down 10 8 6 all hearts. We do have a gut shot. The turn, it's a 4 of hearts. I'll take a chop. River, another 10. My opponent is going to scoop that one. Cutoff is open to 35. I look down at ace 9 off in the straddle. Easy call here. Go heads up to a flop of ace queen 4, 2 hearts, 1 spade. Check it over to my opponent, who puts in a bet of $35 around half pot. Nothing to do here but call. Turn is the 6 of spades. Check it over once again, and we face another half pot bet here. $75. Think about it for a bit, and it's getting a little bit dicey, but I do make the call. River is the jack of clubs. I check once again. My opponent once again bets, this time for $205. Nah, doesn't feel great. I've already folded top set. Am I really going to fold top pair now? I don't know. Something felt like I could possibly be good here, so I make the call, and we are indeed good, picking up a nice little pot there. We have a button limp. Big blind is raised up to $30, and we look down at pocket aces for our final hand. Re-raise it up to $100, and only the big blind continues. Heads up to this flop of queen 5 deuce rainbow. My opponent checks. Gonna start with a small bet here of 60. My opponent calls. Turn is the 6 of clubs. Doesn't change a whole lot. Big blind checks once again. Gonna put in some more money. Set up for that river shove. So I put in a wager of 200. With a little bit of thought, my opponent decides to call. River is the 3 of hearts, introducing a one-liner to a straight. Any 4 is a straight. And now my opponent leads out all in for $490. I don't think there's much decision here. Yeah, we just got to stick it in. So I make the call, and we're good. We're picking up that pot. If we lost that, we would have been down on the night, which is insane. But lucky to win that one and book ourselves a nice little win over this 2-5 game.
950.
All right, guys, wrapping up that home game. We were in the game for 2,300. Out for 3,370. That is a win of $1,070. Not bad for a home game. Some very big pots, a lot of bluffs. I didn't record any of the bomb pots. I just want to have fun. There a lot of work to record, but that's where all the chip swings came from. So that is it, guys. I'm heading home. I'm going to Korea in a week, and I need to prepare for that. So no more poker for me. You guys got an extra video, and I'll see you all in Korea.